The sun was slipping below the skyline of New York City, painting the towers of Manhattan in hues of burnt orange and rose gold. From the penthouse terrace of her luxurious duplex on the Upper West Side, Vanessa Carter, only 25, pulled her car into the driveway. On the outside, she was everything that success was supposed to look like: elegant, powerful, poised. The kind of woman whose presence made people stop mid-sentence. But inside, Vanessa was exhausted. Not just the bone-deep tiredness that comes from endless workdays, but a heavier kind, the sort that weighs on the soul. For years, Vanessa had poured herself into building her late mother's struggling clothing boutique into a thriving multimillion-dollar fashion empire. Business journals called her the Velvet Tycoon, praising her tenacity, her business instincts, and her impeccable style. But that empire had cost her almost everything else. She was admired, envied, even feared in some circles, but rarely understood. And certainly, she was never at peace. As she pushed open the tall glass doors of her home, the sound of laughter floated down the hallway. Warm, familiar laughter. It carried her into the living room, where her 5-year-old daughter, Chloe, sat on the floor with a set of wooden blocks scattered around her. Across from her, seated in a leather armchair, was James Carter, Vanessa's father. At 55, he carried his years with a sort of unshakable dignity. His salt-and-pepper beard framed a face that was calm and reassuring, a face that had steadied Vanessa countless times when she wanted to give up. "Grandpa, look!" Chloe squealed, holding up a crooked little tower of blocks that leaned precariously. James chuckled, his deep voice filling the room. Chloe's laugh rang out again, carefree and innocent, the kind of sound that washed the day's stress away in an instant. The moment the little girl saw her mother, she dropped the blocks and sprinted forward, wrapping her tiny arms around Vanessa's waist. Vanessa bent down, scooping Chloe up, and for just a moment, the weight of the day slipped from her shoulders. Later, as they gathered around the dining table, the savory aroma of James's homemade chicken soup filled the air. But his expression shifted to something more serious. "Vanessa," he said gently, his eyes steady, "you've done more than enough. The company is thriving. But you're drowning. You need to breathe." Vanessa froze, her spoon hovering above the bowl. She had no idea how to slow down, how to rest. Her life had been a constant climb, one summit after another, no chance to pause and take in the view. But then her gaze landed on Chloe's face, her daughter's wide eyes filled with innocence and trust. Something inside her softened. James was right. Maybe it was time. She let out a shaky breath and nodded. "A break," she whispered. "Just me and Chloe. No work. No meetings." It was a decision that felt like a surrender, but also a lifeline. She didn't know it yet, but as she sketched out the beginnings of a long-overdue vacation, the past she had worked so hard to bury was already moving toward her. Watching. Waiting. Ready to unravel everything she thought she had built. That night, as Chloe drifted to sleep beside her favorite stuffed bunny, Vanessa lay awake staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she was considering what it meant to stop fighting. To stop building. To simply exist. She had no idea that this fragile choice, to rest, to retreat, was about to change everything. The next morning, Vanessa woke with an unusual clarity she hadn't felt in years. For once, she didn't roll over to check her phone or scan through emails before even brushing her teeth. Instead, she sat on the edge of the bed, the morning light spilling across her face, and whispered to herself, "Enough." By noon, she had booked 2 tickets, 10 days in Paris. No meetings. No investors. No assistants calling with urgent updates. Just her and Chloe, a mother and daughter finally taking time to breathe. Vanessa had always been meticulous about control, but this time she did something different. She let go. She handed over the company reins to her most trusted deputy, cleared her schedule, and shut down her laptop. When she walked out of her office that afternoon, her steps were lighter than they had been in years. Before heading home, Vanessa made a stop in a small chocolate shop tucked into a quiet street in Brooklyn Heights. It was Chloe's favorite place. The little girl adored the milk chocolates wrapped in shiny gold foil, each piece like a tiny treasure. Vanessa smiled as she purchased a bag, imagining her daughter's excitement when she returned with them. But across the street, hidden in the back seat of a black SUV, sat a man she thought she'd never see again. Ryan Mitchell. Fresh off a flight from London, Ryan had returned to the States on business, a high-profile real estate inspection in Manhattan. He had no intention of wandering into old ghosts. But when his gaze fell on Vanessa, stepping gracefully out of the chocolate shop, his heart stopped. 4 years. 4 years of silence, of unanswered questions, of emptiness where she used to be. And now here she was. Alive. Beautiful. Unaware of his presence. His voice cracked as he whispered to his driver, "Follow her." That evening, Ryan confirmed what his heart already feared and hoped at the same time. Vanessa lived here in New York, with her father and a little girl. His little girl. He wasn't sure yet, but deep down, something told him he already knew the truth. When he learned Vanessa was planning to meet friends at a club that night, Ryan made a decision. He couldn't linger in the shadows any longer. He had to see her. Face to face. The club pulsed with music, the kind that made the walls vibrate. Lights flashed overhead, casting bursts of color across the dance floor like fragments of galaxies. Vanessa stood out instantly. She wore a red dress that clung to her curves, commanding attention without asking for it. She hadn't come to impress anyone. She had come to forget herself, to feel free, if only for a night, before Paris. Her friends, Clara and Brian, flanked her with laughter, clinking glasses of tequila. For a while, Vanessa allowed herself to be pulled into their joy, their carefree banter. The weight of New York melted away. But when she stepped out of the restroom, heels clicking against the marble, adjusting the strap of her dress with a small smile to herself, she collided with someone solid. Someone she hadn't expected. Strong hands caught her mid-stumble, and then, scent. That familiar scent. A mixture of spice and wood, sharp enough to pierce her memory. Vanessa's breath faltered. Her eyes lifted, and the world tilted. Ryan. Taller than she remembered. Broader. His grey eyes locked on hers like he had been waiting for this exact moment for years. The music disappeared. The crowd blurred. It was just him and her. Vanessa. His voice broke into a whisper, but then he said it. A name only he had ever called her. Nessa. Her heart plummeted. That nickname was a ghost, a reminder of a life she had tried to bury. She jerked back, her voice sharp though trembling. "There's nothing to talk about. Let go of me." But Ryan didn't release her immediately. His grip was gentle, desperate. "Just 5 minutes," he pleaded. "Please." Clara appeared at Vanessa's side in an instant, protective. Brian followed, stepping up like a shield. She said no, Brian snapped. Ryan raised his hands in surrender, stepping back. But his eyes never left Vanessa's, haunted and raw. "You owe me that much," he said softly. Vanessa's voice was ice. "I don't owe you anything." She turned and walked away, her heart cracking open all over again with every step. The man she had once given everything to was here, alive, pulling at wounds she thought she had buried. And though she forced herself to keep walking, she knew the past had just caught up to her, and it wasn't letting go. That night, back in her penthouse, Vanessa lay awake beside Chloe. The child's soft breathing filled the room, the glow of her bunny-shaped nightlight casting gentle shadows against the wall. Vanessa's eyes remained fixed on the ceiling, her mind spiraling back to the moment her carefully constructed world had first broken apart, 4 years ago. She hadn't been the velvet tycoon then. She wasn't the poised, untouchable woman that the press fawned over today. Back then, she was barely surviving. After her mother's death, Vanessa had been left alone in London, adrift in grief and hunted by the cruelty of an abusive stepfather. She had no one. Nothing but a photograph clutched in her trembling hands, a photo her mother had pressed into her palm on her deathbed. "Find him," her mother had whispered with her final breath. "Your real father. His name is James Carter. He's a good man." The photo had a number written on the back, but when Vanessa tried it, the line was dead. Desperation, however, had a way of creating bravery. She searched. She scoured the internet until, against all odds, she found him, James Carter. Alive. In London. She dialed the number to his company, her voice breaking as she told the receptionist, "Tell him Grace Douglas's daughter is looking for him." 30 minutes later, he was at her door. One look, and he knew. His voice was firm but gentle, a tremor of emotion running through it. "You're her. You're mine." Within days, a DNA test confirmed what his eyes already knew. And just like that, Vanessa had a father. For the first time in years, she felt she belonged somewhere. James brought her home, back to America, giving her a fresh start she hadn't dared to dream about. But there was something James never knew. Something Vanessa had never told anyone. Just hours before boarding that flight, she had taken another kind of test. One that came with 2 pink lines. She was pregnant. And the father was Ryan. Now, as Chloe stirred in her sleep, Vanessa brushed a hand gently across her daughter's curls. 4 years of silence had kept that secret locked tight. But fate had a way of pulling truth into the light, whether she wanted it or not. The following day, Vanessa decided to give Chloe one last day of simple joy before Paris. She took her to Central Park, the sun bright overhead, the air filled with the sounds of laughter and bicycle bells. Chloe ran toward the swings, her little legs pumping with excitement, her giggles carrying through the breeze. Vanessa sat on a bench nearby, watching her daughter soar back and forth, her tiny feet pointing at the sky. For a moment, peace felt possible. But peace never lasted when the past was still watching. Ryan had found them. Someone had told him where she would be, and there he was, standing at a distance at first, uncertain, his chest heavy with a storm of emotions. But the instant his eyes fell on Chloe, everything inside him shifted. Her face, her eyes, even the way she moved, it was too familiar. Too much of him reflected back. He couldn't walk away. Not this time. Slowly, he approached, each step heavier than the last. Vanessa saw him almost immediately. Her body stiffened, and in a heartbeat, she was on her feet, stepping in front of Chloe like a wall of protection. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice low, sharp. "I just want to talk," Ryan said, his hands raised in surrender. "Not here. Not like this." But his eyes betrayed him. They drifted past Vanessa to the little girl on the swing. His voice softened as he crouched slightly, calling out gently. "Hi there. What's your name?" Chloe looked at him with wide, curious eyes, then smiled shyly. "Chloe." Ryan's throat tightened. "And how old are you?" Vanessa stepped forward fast, her voice cutting like glass. "That's enough." But Chloe, innocent and oblivious, answered anyway. 3.5. Ryan rose slowly, his gaze locking on Vanessa's. His voice broke. "Who's her father?" And then, as if fate itself demanded the truth, Chloe looked up at her mother and asked with childlike simplicity, "Mommy, who's my daddy?" The world froze. Vanessa's chest heaved, her lips trembling. The silence was suffocating, and finally, in a whisper heavy with grief and inevitability, she answered, "Yes, baby. That's your daddy." The ride home was silent. Chloe clutched her teddy bear in the back seat, swinging her legs as though nothing had changed. But everything had. Her innocence was unshaken, but Vanessa's world had been ripped wide open. When they returned to the penthouse, James glanced up from his chair. Vanessa met his eyes, and with one small nod, he understood. The past wasn't just back. It was here to stay. That night, after Chloe was tucked into bed, Vanessa sat at her desk staring at travel plans, hotel confirmations, flight documents, lists of things to pack. But her hands shook so badly she could hardly hold the papers. Her heart wasn't in Paris anymore. It was trapped somewhere between 4 years ago and the raw truth that had crashed into her at Central Park. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something in her gut knew exactly who it was. "Hello." A pause. Then his voice. That same voice that had once been her comfort and her undoing. "Nessa," Ryan whispered. "It's me." Her stomach knotted, but before she could respond, his words dropped like heavy stones. "I want you. And my kid. Come back to me. You belong with me. You're mine." Vanessa's breath caught. Her heart hammered so loud she could barely hear him. But when she finally spoke, her voice trembled with fury. "I want nothing to do with you. You don't get to disappear for years and then suddenly demand a fresh start. I survived without you. I raised our daughter without you. You don't get to rewrite history." The words poured out like wildfire, years of pain igniting all at once. "I hate you, Ryan. You disgust me." Silence hung on the line before she dropped the phone onto the bed, burying her face in her hands as sobs racked her body. Years of silence had just cracked open, leaving her raw and exposed. But Ryan wasn't finished. The next morning, when Vanessa opened the curtains, she froze. There he was, standing at the gate outside her building, waiting. He didn't ring the bell. He just stood there, steady, unmovable. Inside, Chloe knelt by her bed with her tiny hands clasped in her morning prayer. When she opened her eyes, she spotted Ryan outside and waved. "Good morning, Uncle," she chirped sweetly. Ryan's throat tightened. He crouched by the gate and whispered, "Chloe, who do you think I am?" She tilted her head, innocence in her eyes. "Mommy said you're my daddy." The words hit him like a tidal wave. His knees nearly gave out. Just then, James stepped out onto the balcony in his robe, his eyes narrowing as they locked on Ryan. The older man's face was unreadable, but something flickered, recognition, maybe even resignation. Ryan stood tall. "I'm Ryan Mitchell. I'm Chloe's father." James turned calmly to the security guard. "Let him in." Chloe scampered inside. James's voice followed her. "Tell your mother someone is here." Moments later, Vanessa appeared at the top of the stairs, her robe flowing around her like armor, her eyes blazing. She stormed down, each step thunderous. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the air. Ryan didn't flinch. "I had to come." "You don't get to barge into my life like this," she snapped, shaking with rage, not from fear, but fury. "You wouldn't let me talk," Ryan said, stepping closer. His tone was desperate but controlled. "You blocked me out. I had no choice." "You had every choice," Vanessa shot back. "Years of them." The air between them grew thick, suffocating, as if even the walls were bracing themselves. And then Ryan's voice shifted, lower, colder, his words slicing into her like knives. "If I can't have both of you, Vanessa, then I'll take Chloe." Her heart stopped. "What did you just say?" "I'll go to court if I have to. I'll fight for her. You know I don't bluff." Vanessa's chest tightened, her world tilting. She knew him well enough to recognize the truth behind his threat. Ryan wasn't bluffing. He never had. She stood there frozen, watching as he turned and walked away, every step leaving behind a trail of ice. He hadn't just reopened old wounds. He had declared war. Later that evening, Vanessa found herself walking down the hushed hallway of a downtown luxury hotel, her heels echoing like a countdown. She hadn't come to reconcile. She came to draw a line. When the elevator doors opened, she hesitated for just a breath, then knocked firmly on the door marked with his room number. The door opened. Ryan stood there barefoot, in a fitted black shirt and joggers. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes told a different story. He stepped aside, letting her in. Vanessa walked in, spine straight, chin high. "I came to talk about Chloe," she said firmly. "Nothing else." Ryan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You don't have to take her away. We can co-parent. She doesn't have to suffer because of us." "That's exactly what I'm saying," she shot back. "You don't need to fight me. Just be present. Be her father. That's all." But Ryan wasn't ready to leave it there. His voice softened, edged with pain. "I didn't want this. I wanted to get to you, but you shut me out, Nessa. Completely." "Stop calling me that," she snapped. He took a breath, frustration flickering in his eyes. "You left me, Vanessa. You didn't give me the chance to explain." "Explain what?" she demanded, folding her arms. His next words made her entire body tense. "I didn't marry her, Vanessa. I left Angela the day you disappeared." Her jaw tightened. "You what?" "I called off the wedding. I chose you. I was coming for you. But when I got to your place, you were gone." The room seemed to shrink, her mind spinning. He had chosen her. But he had still been too late. "Don't do this," she whispered, her voice trembling. But he did. He stepped closer, his hand brushing her jaw. And then he kissed her. Soft at first, then hungry. And for a moment, just one moment, Vanessa didn't push him away. The day of departure came with an uneasy mix of excitement and dread. Vanessa double-checked every detail: passports, tickets, Chloe's travel pillow shaped like a bunny, snacks, books. She told herself this trip was about peace, about escape. But when she opened the door that morning and saw Ryan stepping out of a car, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, her chest tightened like a vice. "Daddy!" Chloe squealed, darting forward and leaping into his arms. He lifted her effortlessly, spinning her in a circle, his smile wide and genuine. "You ready for Paris, princess?" he asked. Chloe beamed. Vanessa, on the other hand, remained silent. Silence was her last defense, her only boundary. The ride to JFK Airport was filled with Chloe's chatter, her voice bubbling with excitement about the Eiffel Tower and the boat rides she had seen in picture books. Vanessa sat stiffly, her gaze locked on her phone, pretending to read emails she had long cleared. Every so often, her eyes betrayed her, drifting toward Ryan. His presence filled the car even when he said nothing. On the plane, first-class seats placed them in a row together, Chloe at the window, Vanessa in the middle, Ryan at the aisle. There was no escaping him. Mid-flight, as Chloe dozed against her mother's shoulder, Ryan leaned slightly closer. "Thank you for letting me come," he said quietly. Vanessa didn't look at him. "I didn't do it for you." "I know." His tone was steady, but there was something raw beneath it. But I'm still here. And I'm not leaving again. She closed her eyes, refusing to answer. Yet a small, treacherous part of her wanted to believe him. Paris welcomed them with skies streaked in gold and streets alive with the hum of scooters and laughter. Their hotel suite overlooked the Eiffel Tower, chandeliers dripping crystal light, velvet curtains drawn wide to reveal a balcony view fit for a movie scene. Vanessa filled their days with movement. Museums, gardens, river cruises, anything to keep from sitting still too long. Chloe's laughter became the soundtrack of the trip, bright and pure. Ryan was never far behind, always near enough to lift Chloe onto his shoulders, or snap a photo, or buy her a crepe when she asked. Vanessa, though, remained guarded. Every smile she gave him was fleeting, every laugh clipped short, as if she feared what might happen if she let it last too long. But on their third night, after Chloe fell asleep clutching a toy Eiffel Tower in her tiny hand, Vanessa stepped out onto the balcony. The breeze tangled through her silk nightgown as she stared at the city shimmering below. She wanted to feel peace, but her heart thudded too loudly, her mind too restless. Ryan joined her minutes later, silent at first, leaning on the railing beside her. They stood shoulder to shoulder, the city stretching out like a promise before them. Finally, he spoke. "I miss you," he said softly. She didn't answer. "I was broken when you left," he continued, his voice cracking. "I know I wasn't perfect. But I loved you, Vanessa. I still do." Her jaw tightened, her eyes fixed on the glittering skyline. "You want forgiveness like it's something you can just claim. Like your pain cancels out mine." "I didn't marry her," Ryan said, the words tumbling out like confession. "Angela, she begged me not to leave her, but I walked away. I chose you. I was too late, but I chose you." Her chest rose and fell sharply. She turned toward him, eyes blazing with hurt and something she couldn't name. "You were too late," she whispered. Ryan stepped closer, careful, hesitant. "Let me try again." And before she could stop him, his lips found hers. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened, fueled by years of silence and regret. For a moment, Vanessa didn't pull away. For a moment, her body betrayed her heart, remembering every touch, every whisper, every piece of the man she once loved. Paris glimmered around them, but in that instant, the city faded. There was only him. There was only them. And yet, even as the kiss lingered, a shadow settled in Vanessa's chest. Because love wasn't the only thing that had returned with Ryan. Secrets had come with him too. And the truth had a way of finding its way into the light. Paris glittered that night as though the entire city were conspiring to paint their reunion as destiny. Chloe slept soundly in the suite, her toy bunny tucked under her chin, her breathing steady and calm. Inside the living room, Ryan poured a glass of wine, his movements quiet, almost tender. On the balcony, Vanessa stood alone, the night breeze brushing her silk gown, the taste of his kiss still lingering on her lips. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of something different. Not safety, not certainty, but the dangerous pulse of hope. Then her phone buzzed. The screen lit with an unknown number. A single message. Just one sentence. "Ask him about Angela. Ask him about the night before your wedding. Everything you know is a lie." Vanessa's blood ran cold. She turned, phone clutched tight, her voice slicing the air. "Who sent this?" she demanded, holding the screen out. Ryan froze, the glass in his hand halfway to his lips. His silence betrayed him. "So it's true," Vanessa said, her tone sharp and brittle. "There's more you haven't told me." He set the glass down slowly, his face heavy with resignation. "Angela showed up at my hotel the night before the wedding," he admitted. "She was crying, begging me not to walk away. She was desperate. And you let her stay." Vanessa's voice cracked, trembling between fury and heartbreak. "I did," he confessed. "But nothing happened. I swear it." Vanessa's chest tightened, her walls slamming back into place. Every inch of progress they'd made, every fleeting touch, every stolen kiss, it all felt undone. "You hid it," she whispered, her eyes glistening. "I didn't cheat," Ryan said quickly, desperation bleeding into his words. I didn't want to lose you again." "You already did," she snapped, her voice sharp as broken glass. He stepped toward her, his gray eyes glistening. "I love you, Vanessa. That hasn't changed. If I have to earn your trust day by day, I'll do it. Just don't shut me out again." Vanessa backed away, her phone still clenched in her fist like a weapon. Her voice was steadier than she felt. "I won't punish myself for loving you, Ryan. Not anymore. But if you want me, If you want us, you're going to have to prove you're worth staying for. The words hung between them like a fragile thread. He didn't fight her this time. He didn't push. Instead, he nodded slowly, his voice rough. Anything you want. Just don't walk away again. She stepped forward, just enough to place her hand in his. I'm not walking away, she whispered. The morning after was quiet, softer than any Vanessa had known in years. She stirred beneath the sheets, sunlight slipping through the curtains. For once, she hadn't cried herself to sleep. Beside her, Ryan lay still, one arm draped loosely across her waist. In sleep, he looked younger, less guarded, almost human again. Vanessa slipped out of bed and padded to Chloe's room. The little girl was curled into a tiny ball, her stuffed bunny tucked under her chin. Vanessa brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead, her chest tightening, not from pain this time, but from the weight of choices. The weight of what ifs. Later that morning, Ryan joined her at the breakfast table. Chloe giggled as he clumsily flipped pancakes, smearing batter across his nose. You're the funniest daddy ever, she squealed, collapsing into laughter. For a fleeting moment, it all felt normal. Like family. The three of them wandered the Paris streets that afternoon. Chloe skipped ahead, her laughter bouncing off stone walls, while Vanessa and Ryan trailed behind. They took photos near the Seine, shared crepes, and let the wind carry their laughter into the sky. Vanessa didn't think about the past. She didn't dwell on the unknown future. For once, she allowed herself to exist in the present. And in that fragile space, between heartbreak and healing, between bitterness and forgiveness, something else began to bloom. Hope.